Linda, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So hi, I'm Linda Denstead. I'm from Michigan, Open Learning Project in Michigan. And Laura and I are really excited to actually talk to you about the Teacher Studio as a tool, but we're also really interested in hearing your thinking. And so this is going to be a reflective conversation. We'll be dropping in and out of the Google document to write and come out and talk. So we want to start with the writing. And there's a question really asking, what are your experiences in the Teacher Studio, and what are you thinking and your reflections on those experiences? And so if we would like to begin with you jumping onto the Google Doc and actually doing some writing, we'll call you back in about 3 minutes.
Linda, do you have the Google Doc to drop the link in the chat?
Sure, I can do that.
Isaac, are you okay? Sorry about that.
So if you'd finish your thoughts and possibly take a moment and glance through, scan quickly what other people are saying, a couple of other people, what they're saying, so you get a sense of how others are engaging with the teacher studio before we come back, that would be great.
So I'm just curious what people notice. Are there any patterns to the way that so far folks are using Teacher Studio that you notice?
The thing I notice is that a lot of other people feel like they should be could be using it better, which is a feeling close to my own experience. It's kind of comforting. It's not like, it's not, oh, good. I'm not the only one who sees its potential, but doesn't quite know how to get on to grab it yet.
Any other thoughts that you'd like to share preliminarily? Patterns or observations?
I also noticed how that was a current or a common comment that they're, well, I should be using it more. I should get on there more often. And I'm wondering if there's a way to steal ideas from social media, the really popular social media companies, to get you really hooked, to get us on there as the really savvy builders of other social media, really get people engaged, even though they don't want to. No, I shouldn't click this, and then you're there. You're there for a long time.
Yeah, interesting to think about. I'll just tell you that when Linda and I were talking about this, we loved having a chance to kind of compare notes about our own experiences with regard to Teacher Studio. And I'll just say that we acknowledge that we were both pretty skeptical because initially what we thought was, we had heard the Teacher Studio was kind of a replacement for Yammer, which was that old tool. And we were like, oh, great, another tool. And I think we were not sure what it could do. I know that I was invited by Tanya to take some work that we were doing with the Beloved Community Initiative and try to put it onto Teacher Studio early on. And again, there was a lot of skepticism. We had a lot of trouble as a Beloved Community group trying to figure out what we were doing in relation to Teacher Studio. And I'll just note, it's only been about like 6 months since we've all been trying to use Teacher Studio. So just to give us a little props. But one of the things that Linda and I said as we were thinking about this session is that there were some potentials that we're seeing that actually we wanted to talk with you about and then have us all kind of think together a little bit. So one thing that I was going to just talk about for a minute. So there's a term that's known as distributed leadership. And the idea is that with distributed leadership, you have these collaborative teams and people have differing strengths and they become used to working in an independent, interdependent fashion. And, I'll just say that I was going to give I'll give you a quick example. So my best example of this that I experienced in Teacher Studio was we did this Cultivating Genius study group in the month of July. And we offered it within the Teacher Studio following the Goldie Muhammad webinar. And there were 4 sites, the Boston, Philadelphia, Red Mountain, and Western Pennsylvania writing projects involved. We planned a sequence of 4 study group sessions that were offered weekly, and each site took 1 session and planned it. Teams from the site actually planned and offered the sessions, and the co-facilitators did pre and debrief meetings with Goldie Muhammad, the author of Cultivating Genius. We generated a kind of general session template, but then we really were inviting all kinds of variations in the planning. And then we used the framework that was actually in the book as kind of the intellectual framework for all 4 sessions. And I think what was interesting and surprising and beautiful to me was that these site leading teams from the 4 different sites began to know each other a little bit and to recognize connections and ties. And they were creating something for a national audience. And so it was just kind of like, oh, it struck me like we could be doing this on purpose. And the second idea I'm going to have Linda talk about here for a sec.
So when Laura and I were talking about this, we were just astounded how much value was added to experiences when part of them or all of them were done in the studio. And actually, when you think about, so what do you name? How do you say that? So we realized it's really a learning ecosystem. And it's really a place where dynamic interactions occur, but these dynamic interactions that are planned are catalysts for new and emerging things that create identities and help people see themselves as independent, as well as collective. And part of this is the actual design of the studio. It's nested within the national office work, within a series of events and activities that are happening at sites across the nation. I mean, think about the book studies and the social justice conversations and the authors and scholars events. I mean, you can invite, like I decided after managing one small group to invite my TCs in, and they can wander around in the studio on a national level and engage with amazing people. And the work that they're doing with us on our site is only growing as a result from these interactions. So what I learned really is managing, and my opinion, it comes largely from managing two groups, writing groups. And there's a little slide that sort of lists the things that happen. But I just want to say, as I worked with the secret group, with the C3W blogging team, and then I realized how amazing the work was. Then I wanted to have it for my site myself, and for us to be able to do work, because the studio offers a space for collective, collaborative, and independent and creative study. It helps writers see themselves as agented creators, making their drafts, writing, thinking public, and they're able to co-create and initiate conversations. It is a virtual studio that is a mirror of a real artist studio, where they walk down the hall anytime, day or night, write and can post, and expect that someone will post back. And that's exactly the dynamic interaction that's occurred for both groups. So I'm sort of sold that it's important to have the studio as part of your work, not maybe the only part, but part of your work.
And, so we had big questions, which were about intentionally using the best of the teacher studios. But on the guide sheet, we have a simpler way of putting it. And I think that maybe what we should do is put people into small groups, possibly for about 5 minutes. Or maybe we should continue as a larger group. What do you think, Linda? We only have 7 minutes left.
With 7 minutes, let's just stay whole group.
Okay. Well, so, I mean, I think what we were thinking about, so we had these bigger questions, which are how to go intentionally, thinking about distributed leadership and about learning ecosystems. But honestly, there's a simpler way to think about it, which is what do we wish was going on in the teacher studio, and what do we imagine for it, or what also could we offer from our sites, from our strengths, and bring into the teacher studio. So just any thoughts or ideas, we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Or you can drop them in the chat. Someone just dropped something in the chat. That might be a way to actually do this as well.
That was me, Sue Fletcher. I just said that given all the stresses that teachers at all levels are feeling right now, I think having a space for writing about some of those stresses and how, they're feeling undervalued or overworked. People post on it all the time. There are memes. There's, everywhere you look, there seem to be, articles about this. So I just thought we could give it a space to have people be able to share.
And yeah, that makes really good sense. And what would that look like? How do you imagine that in a way that would be really inviting for people?
Well, I think it's kind of tricky because obviously, it's very personal. So I'm not really sure how you would set it up in that way. I think we can do it even as state groups or sites that could be, more our own group, like a study group would be, but make it, I think, about just a place to just kind of relieve the stress a little bit, to know you're not the only one. I think that means so much to people, to know they're not the only one facing a lot of these stressors right now, and just to get encouragement. That's so huge I think, for teachers right now.
So I've been encouraging, we do a book group usually once a year, and it's hit or miss the number of people that you can get in, but I've been encouraging the people who lead those to pick a book you're interested in, then go to the teacher studio and see if you can draw an audience around it that way, instead of just limiting yourself to our region.
And how has that been going? Is there anything that could be done that would make that?
Well, currently there's been no uptake, though we just discussed it at the last meeting, and they hadn't even chosen a book. So, but I thought expanding it and not having to worry about whether you get enough to get it go, it would be interesting to have it broaden your audience to a more national stage.
So I'm the guide for the Mindful Writing Workshop Deeper Dive, which has been a very good experience for me. It's actually a wonderful place to kind of host and participate in that conversation. And I know that in the Deeper Dive, that the Holy Muhammad study, I believe, was in the Deeper Dive, if I'm remembering, Laura. And I think there's a self-guided book study in there on CAST right now. So there's a way to have the deeper dive be kind of a set of resources for folks that you could refer them to. But also you could think about whether what you're doing might become, a deeper dive. I think all it takes is collaborating with Elise and Tanya and working that out probably. I found the deeper dive to be very convenient to work in, really, but it feels to me like it's a little bit hidden from the world. I don't know if the Russian doll, if I've got the ethnicity right there, but where you take one part off and another part off and another part off, and there's still another doll there. You have to do that about 4 times to get to the deeper dive. but if you do that, then I think there's a nice array of resources there.
Yes, there.
Yeah,
Thank
the nesting dolls.
Mhm.
I would love to add, Mary, I really like that the idea of the book circle and this space for that, and I was really intrigued by something that came up in our CWP meetings, which was within the ISI having sort of multiple texts that people are working with as opposed to one, and how interesting it might be to have ISIs across regions connecting those those conversations existing during the summer, since we kind of have a captive audience for a little while, even though I know they don't all run simultaneously. So it's like something to think about.
I really love that idea, Hillary, of potentially having some, like the equivalent of book study groups that are national book study groups happening during the summer, so that people from the sites and also people who've already been through summer institutes or people who are interested in the books might all converge and have a conversation that might involve some, kind of Zoom connection, but also a dialogue within the teacher studio. I think that's a really exciting potential idea.
And I think one of the draws for many TCs is the fact that it's national. Is the fact that they're talking to people from Missouri or Kentucky or California.
That's one of the things that I talked to. So I'm working with a group of middle and high school teachers. Oh, I'll make it fast. Who don't know much about the national part of the writing project, and so that's part of what I talked to them about going to the studio is like, hey, look, there's a lot available here that's not just this big, and the few who've done it have been really happy about that.
So we have 7 seconds left. Would you please go back to the Google Doc and add your thinking about possibility?
That's a failed strategy.
Okay.
Because I forgot. I'm sorry.
All right.
To my group, Luke or I might call you to help us further as we move from beta to a new website, period.
All right. Welcome back.
And Bob, you owe Kathleen Riley like some kind of thank you, because I would have once again forgotten to record my group, but she made me do it. I mean, I already thanked her, but I think.
So
Thinking of a new strategy.
Kathleen needs to come into my group next time, because obviously that's the only way. So I think Tom, I'm not sure what square you're in, but Tom, I think, there you are. Tom, it's you.
I'm here, and I'm talking about the meeting in May.
And inviting any reflections from any of the groups that needed to be heard.
Okay, so which should I do first? Reflections.
I think that was the plan.
So what happened at your groups, and how can we learn together from what was said? Just a nugget from each.
Yeah.
Group 1, a nugget. Oh, it's my group. We had a million ideas is what we had. We had iceberg ideas, every idea that we had. And this was the group that was talking about like, what could the site report do? And there were like a little question, then there were a whole bunch of things underneath each one. And we talked about PD, we talked about organizational structures and sharing them in the site report. We talked about revenue, and these are some of the things that sites wanted to learn from each other. And then we got into a really interesting discussion about not what was in the reports, but how we share them and what we can do to recreate sort of the intimate exchange of ideas and programs and thoughts that used to occur at the annual meeting in the hallway. We had a great discussion though, and thanks everybody. Next is group 2, Tanya's group, right?
Yep. So I just want to thank the people who are in my group. We were talking about what do we need to know while we continue working on this website, and it's a beautiful group and very generous with their ideas. And I'm thankful. If they want to say anything in particular, I just say we have a lot of rich, deep resources and how to organize them and display them so that people can find them and then find the next thing is always the question. And we got some good ideas, so thank you.
Is group number 3 Laura? No.
Rachel's group.
Rachel.
Rachel.
I think it's my group.
Okay.
Yeah, so you should check out our collaborative document where we did some great writing about what people have done in recent years with C3WP and very innovative ways they're finding to work with individual teachers, schools, districts, and also make connections with like state departments. So there's some great stuff there and some resources. And we looked at some possible resources to sort of expand our thinking about where we could go from here, and then had what felt like a way too short conversation about the implications and our hopes and ideas for the future, but even then got some really great stuff down.
As is usual, not enough time. Laura.
So we were talking about Teacher Studio, and first of all, we were celebrating the fact that we have only been on Teacher Studio for 6 months at this point. So it's really not that long, but there was a lot of guilt. People are feeling a little bit guilty about like, I'm not doing it quite right. I'm not using it as well as we could. And we began to brainstorm what could be in Teacher Studio. And that's a conversation I would love to keep having. We're hoping that people will keep filling out. There's a form that went along with our conversation, but keep brainstorming. We talked a little bit about what we did see as potential in terms of the idea of distributed leadership development and the fact that this is a learning ecosystem that could be intentionally built.
That's great. Thank you. Jesse, you're next. Jesse was actually at the first Summer Institute in 1974. She's remarkably well preserved.
I was
but
too.
you know, you would. Let's talk about the 50th.
That's awesome. So our group had such cool ideas about how to celebrate the 50th as a network and locally, talking about having a writing marathon and different ways that we could have writing marathons at the sites to celebrate together. And another was to have sites take over NWP social media. So each site take over, do live streams and posts about their great work to celebrate 50 years. And each site would do that for like a week or whatever. We also had one person shared the idea of like 50 days of like different 50-day prompts of writing or PD ideas, but that was exciting. Another was like a book. Brian Ripley Crandall talked about the work that he's been doing with Tanya with the right time and thinking about ways of putting out that work for others to share with authors, but also thinking about ways to celebrate the work of teachers in the site and researchers in the site. So maybe special issues of journals, things like that. And people do love the idea of a party and getting together and dressing up and maybe drinking some things and celebrating. And so that was definitely something people wanted to do. And I like imagining doing things like that when I'm stuck at home, right? Avoiding COVID. So anyway, I have lots of notes that I'll share, and it's exciting to think about.
Thank you, everyone. I did want to say a few words about saving the dates for our May meeting. We will come up with a title for the May meeting. We don't have it exactly yet, but May 24th through 26th are the dates, and it will be in Denver. And we're still working on like a lot of things, including like what exactly we're going to do. But one of the things we're going to do is map out the future of our work and establish that cycle of reporting that Elise was talking about, and making the best use of all of the infrastructure that has been built up. And it should be like a exciting, forward-looking, lovely meeting. I'm thrilled that we are having it. Anything else anybody wants to say, Elise, Tanya, Rachel, Beth, about the meeting?
Well, I would say that it is, we hope some people will come to the meeting so that we can actually make it a working meeting. But if you can't, that does not exclude you from contributing to all of these things. In fact, what we're going to do is follow this Connecting the Network call up with an invitation to put some of your interests in a Google form under the theory that the National Writing Project, all of us and our TCs, if you send us a Google form, we will respond. So send a Google form. So all the things you might be interested in will be on that. And what we really want to do is gather interests. And the May meeting is one of the places that we'll work on it, on the kinds of things that are on there, but there will be other opportunities too.
And is that Google form in the agenda, or are we going to email it out to people?
Bob, I think you were thinking we would email it, and it would be also on the event link in the site leaders. Is that correct?
I can do that. Yeah, if the Google form's ready, I can toss it in the chat though too. So is it the form I saw? Okay, I can toss it in the chat real quick too. But we'll also follow up the email. So I'm dropping the link to the form in the chat.
And we would want to close by saying, out of something that I said to the folks in my group, we have no expectation that there will not be a national writing project. There will be a national writing project. There's going to be a national writing project, and it's going to have another 50 years. We're completely committed to that. So for anyone who's hearing this news and carrying, a worry about that, it may be different. Things may change, but they've been changing for the last 50 years, heaven knows. So we will still be here as a network together, and then also those of us with the particular responsibility to making sure that there's a national brand in the world, we're going to be doing that. So.
Okay, and I'm having a problem with the form, so I'm going to update the permissions on the form.
Okay.
So,
in the meantime, there's a question from Karen. Is the Denver meeting open to anyone who can get there?
So we have, so the answer is sort of yes, in that there is a limit to the number of rooms in the place, but we're trying to get a bunch of them, but it is open. We want to be able to bring people in who want to contribute their leadership. We want to make sure that that's possible for them to do. So we're going to have to juggle, but right now it seems like there's plenty of room. Those of you who have gone before to the Inverness facility, we've done a lot of things in Inverness outside of Denver. That's where we are going to be holding it. And yes, we will cover expenses there. We do need you to get yourself to it. Anything for the good of the order?
Again, I'm sorry.
This is Robin from the Wiregrass Writing Project in Alabama, and I'm so glad to see everyone. One thing I did want to mention, because I couldn't decide whether to go to the 50th anniversary or to the other session. But one thing I wanted to make sure that we're thinking about as we're celebrating the 50th anniversary, many of what they're calling now as the new innovations that they're saying that are going on in education, such as instructional coaching, modeling in classrooms, et cetera, we've been doing that for the last 50 years. And we need to brand that, and we need to bring it up to the forefront, like in the next 50 days. And we just, it's so important that they're thinking that these are innovations. No, they're not innovations. These are things that we've been doing for a really long time and doing them very well. So I'm not the techiest person in the world, but whatever I can do to make that happen, I think that needs to be front and center. And thank you for this opportunity.
That is a great note to leave on. Jamika, did you want to make a comment though? Okay, that is it. Yes, we were innovative before anybody else even thought to connect the word. That was us. So with that in mind,
we were instructional coaches before they knew they needed a coach.
You got it. Let's take that with us from this call. It was great to see you all. Things will follow up in the site leaders group in the studio. Bye, everybody.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.